Hello and welcome back to the Weekend Spread, the Schooner Pod's Total College Football Podcast. I am your host, Bobby Howard. With me today, joining me, the crew of the Weekend Spread, Jameson Maxwell, Ty Lee, and Bowton Blake. And boys, you can take the pod out of the Big 12, but you can't take the Big 12 pod out of the pod. Okay, that didn't make sense. But we had to do the Big 12 preview. We've been doing this for like 5-6 years now, and we've been doing it in a very specific way. Instead of going over unders, all of that, we just give our top 10 Big 12 teams. Now there are no longer just 10 Big 12 teams, so there will just have to be 10 of them. But we're going to give our takes. This is usually one of the more chaotic pods of the year. We're going to do this with the SEC as well. But guys, how weird is it prepping for a Big 12 preview without the Sooners involved?
Yeah, it feels a little bit weird, and it's kind of sad because a lot of it we put it in the perspective, the lens of Oklahoma, and we still get a little bit of how they played them last year for some of these teams, but the majority of it, there's not too much reference range here. So it kind of feels odd, and it felt a little empty as I did that.
Like, if anything, for me, it enhanced the experience. This made it like the wild, wild west. Whenever I send in my picks, and Bobby's like, "Oh God, like this, we are so far off from each other." It at least makes it interesting that there could theoretically be 4 or 5 teams that could end up at the top of anybody's rankings. There could be 5 teams that are in people's top 5s that end up in the bottom like 5 or 4. These teams could end up anywhere, and it's truly the only conference like it. We finally get what people have been clamoring for, which I don't get. Like, people have been hating on the Big 12 in the streets that aren't Big 12 fans, but literally for years, people have been clamoring for college football to have a conference that isn't dominated by Alabama, that isn't dominated by Ohio State, that isn't dominated by Florida State or Clemson. They want this, and we finally got it, and now they just talk about how trash these teams are. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. It's a G5 kind of college football atmosphere when it comes to the conference title race with P5 talent. And I think that's going to be fun. I think it's going to be an absolute blast of a season.
Ty?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's when I was doing my notes pre-podcast here, I actually invented a term for how I feel about this, because I love that we're doing this. It's going to be the most competitive conference top to bottom. I think it's one that if you watch other media besides the Schooner Pod, you'll see that no one is really that sure about how this is going to pan out. Maybe there's some consensus at one, but then other than that, it could be anything. So that's very exciting. But at the same time, it gives me this feeling like, have you guys ever gone back to like a location that maybe you went one time for like a party or something, and it was super fun, but then no one's there anymore? It's not the same. Or maybe you go, you're at school like late at night after practice or something, and you go to your locker or something and no one's there. And it's like, it's just not the same without the people there. That's kind of how the Big 12 feels for me without OU and without Texas. It loses that little bit of edge that I get from my team being there. So it was almost bitter and sweet. So I came up with this term called bittersweet. It's like both of those things at once. And it really describes how I feel about this. You guys are free to use that one, by the way.
Modern day Shakespeare over here, Ty. I love it. Okay, so here's how we're going to do this. So we have 10 teams, obviously quite different on each of them. So I'm going to just kind of guide the way throughout this process. It's a bit confusing. So each time we run into a team, we're going to reveal them across your board. So we're going to start with this. So Ty, who do you have as your 10th spot?
I just remembered how we do this, and we didn't start where I thought we were going to start. If we're starting at my number 10, then this is going to make me look a lot better, because I thought we were going to do this alphabetically, and it was going to get real weird real quick for old Ty's rankings. At number 10, I have the Colorado Buffaloes.
Of course he does.
Colorado coming in at number 10 for both Ty and Bowton Blake.
Blake learned his lesson. Hey,
over under 5.5, guys. Come on.
The Buffs are unranked. The Buffs are unranked in Jameson and I's poll.
you could be top 3 in this league and probably have a 8-4 record. Like that is on the table here. This league is going to be madness. Like we're going to see a lot of these teams have a lot of losses that are going to be about top third at this conference.
Look, they have weapons. They have two really, really solid. I'm a what's his name truther. I'm not even going to mention his name until he picks a side of the ball to play. But I think that actually I just blanked on his name. It's Travis Hunter. I tried to make that a bit. I just completely forgot. I recall. But look, Shedeur Sanders, I genuinely believe is a very, very good. I think he is an actual elite quarterback. He doesn't have a great line around him. This was a fun pick for me, but I think they have the tools to really upset some people. This is not a jab at Blake. Like, we know they can upset people. I think they have some tools to throw some upsets at people, especially if they can keep their motivation up throughout the season. I just think they're going to come in and embarrass some people and be that guy that can kind of squeak in at the 10 spot.
I understand where you're coming from. They have the talent. I also believe in Shedeur Sanders as a quarterback. The problem is when you hear these reports coming out from players and what it's like to play at Colorado, saying how it's the Wild West and there's just no order and there's just no discipline throughout anything. What makes you think that it's going to change anything that happened last year to this year? I don't see it. I agree with Jimmy Horn and he's good with Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. They got an offensive tackle. Their offensive line, Travis Hunter on EA Sports live stream said how bad their offensive line is. That's saying something.
That's not a great look. Not a great look.
What time is Colorado going to have to do anything? And they don't have the game of the season where they can start and beat up on TCU. That's not going to happen again. So it's going to be a tough year for Colorado. I just disagree with this.
Right. They're starting off with North Dakota State. The vibes are horrendous.
But
I feel like, look, if the Bison find a way to get an upset against the Buffaloes, which is weird sentence, things could go downhill very quickly. And not only that, but Colorado has a pretty tough schedule. You got Nebraska on the road. You got Arizona, Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. It's a pretty tough slate. And I feel like the Big 12 is tougher than the Pac-12 was last year too. So I think the vibes are worse. I don't know if the team's all that much better. We'll see how it goes. But I'm selling the Buffs right now. I'm not too big on them.
I'm not gonna lie, Bobby. You made a compelling argument.
No, there's a lot of compelling arguments,
and the team is worse.
I'll say the line sucks. The defense sucks. There could be some vibes issues in the locker room, but this just feels like a play. I'm like, when you're going through these, I need stars shining off that page. Something for me to actually believe in, which some of these teams that y'all probably are throwing in your top 10 definitely don't have that shining star. Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, it's a elite 1-2 punch. And they played a lot of close games last year. Towards the end of the season, the wheels fell off. Ty and I are either going to be really right about this or really wrong because, the moment this team quits, they quit bad. They quit really, really bad, and they will just give up. And especially since all these guys are draft eligible, they are just going to shut them down for the season. And if they can't get off the blocks hot, but. Yep. I have a feeling. I saw that video today of that beautiful Shedeur Sanders just out route on the goal line, just hit him right with the dart. This team has way too much talent. It has way too much swagger. I just feel 6-6. I feel
they got talent at 4 spots, 4 players,
4 spots. But they have they probably have. They have one of the best, if not, could be the best quarterback in the nation this year. That means something. We've seen Jalen Daniels take bum LSU last year to an 8-4 record. Why can't he do 6-6 in the Big 12?
But what's stopping Shedeur from having 2 or 3 bad games and then just giving up? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's the thing. That's the thing.
Will happen.
If they do not get off the start hot, this is not Noah Lyles trying to close the 100-meter here.
Ty's what have I done?
Wait a second. No. Blake's got the wrong argument here. He's trying to fight it. That will happen. I'm just saying it's going to happen late enough that they'll already be solid in 10. They might make it up to 6, and then they're going to slide down and they're going to finish at 10 in the Big 12.
I
Look, they're going to cash in. If you could buy Deion Sanders's like search history data, I guarantee at least 3 times in the past month he's Googled, can coaches enter the transfer portal?
That's funny. All right,
Transfer portal
Jameson.
head coach.
All right, we've definitely talked enough about the Buffs here. Moving on, Jameson, who do you have as your number 10?
Someone that's really dirty, and I know I'm going to get roasted for it. And I wanted to do it just to see what Boat and Blake. I've got Baylor Bears at number 10.
Baylor, you are the
mad.
only person to rank the Baylor Bears. They come in at 10th. Went 3-9 last season. They have a win total of 5.5 games.
Yeah,
we got bashed with that 5.5 win total, and then Jameson over here putting us another 5.5 win total at the 10th spot.
Well, let me tell you something. What is different about Baylor that I have some kind of horse in this race? Jake Spavital. Jake Spavital coming in as offensive coordinator is going to bring.
He sucked at Texas State, and you know it.
The second they got him out of there, Boko started thriving.
Jake Spavital is going to come back to Texas and bring order to this Baylor system. Their offense was not it, and I think it's a big, big deal that they need to establish the run again. I believe in Dominic Richardson. I believe in Richard Reese. They're both returning. That's a pretty good 1-2 punch to where I don't think they're going to go 3 wins again. I really don't. I understand people giving me flack for this, but Blake Shapen isn't there anymore, and that is a huge net positive. Come on, you guys got to give me that at least.
But their backup last year was such trash.
Hey, they got Toledo's transfer now. And, anything's possible. Daquan Finn, who knows?
Okay, you're just Googling names. This is like for
No,
LeBron.
I looked this up beforehand.
This is like for LeBron, my favorite tight ends clip.
I knew that Blake Shapen was gone, and I knew whoever is going to come in is going to be a positive. And so that's all my
Jameson, let me give you a piece of advice. A wise man once told me, the vibes are worse and the team is worse.
This team's gonna be really bad. Like, Dave Aranda is on, like, if you're doing the hot seat rankings for all of America, he is number 1 or not, probably number actually, no, I'll say it. He is number 1 for a mid-season firing. I don't think they're going to mid-season fire Sam Pittman. They respect that man too much. Baylor does not. I don't think they like Dave Aranda, but they don't love him. And he has done nothing. He had that one good year back in 2021, and after it have done absolutely jack squat with this roster. Jeff Grimes, I thought, was a pretty decent OC. Couldn't like score with him to save his life. They bring in Jake Spavital, who was able to take Texas State to like a 2-10 record each year, get Jameson's hopes up, and then have them become a relevant thing on our podcast. He is now taking over that offense with Daquan Finn, who people are like hyping up. He played at Toledo. They're like the one max school that doesn't actually try to play legitimate competition. Like, this man hasn't played a single good team in his life, and they expect him to be better than Blake Shapen behind a bad offensive line.
I agree.
A bad defense. Who Dave Aranda was the one that was like hired to do. Like, he's supposedly one of the best defensive coordinators in the nation, but yet has gotten Baylor to worse each year in defense. This team is going to be bad. This team, like, Jameson might have his wish, and Jake Spavital will take over in the middle of the season and try to coach them to for 5 more losses for the rest of the year. This team, I don't care about schedule. I don't care about anything. This team's going to be really bad. I think they're doing their whole little we pay players thing, and they're trying to get the hype up, but it's going to be bad. It's going to be really bad this year.
Yeah,
I obviously had a lot of alternative motive here, but I'm very excited hearing all of these responses.
Incredible. I'm out on Baylor as well.
Yep,
I agree. I feel like Aranda, like last year, I kind of was like, this is going to be a bounce back year for him. And then week 1, they lost to Boko. So that didn't go straight. That didn't go great, like straight from the jump. All right. So here's my number 10. I'm rolling with the Texas Tech Red Raiders.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, look at that team in my ranking. Wow.
Oh, no. This is my favorite part when people start to get exposed.
I have Texas Tech coming in at 10th. Jameson puts them at 8. So I look, man, I don't know. Like, I was kind of thankful to see Tech show up at 8 for you, Jameson, because I immediately would be protected from any Tech hate. I think they're decent enough to get this spot. It's 10. I overhyped them last year. I took the feed, that Joey McGuire was giving me, and hand up on that. That was not the right move, but I think Tech and Baron Morton are good enough to get some wins.
Yes.
I feel like their key games are pretty relatively solid. You don't really have to deal with much of a non-conference threat. I feel like Arizona winnable, Iowa State winnable, Oklahoma State winnable, West Virginia, like everything just
What do you
feels
mean winnable?
Whoa.
You're going at Oklahoma State, at Arizona, two of the best programs in the Big 12, and you're just like, oh, they're winnable. Yes, any game is winnable that you step onto the field. Whether you think they're actually going to win them, that's what we really need to be talking about here.
Yeah, they're just. I don't know. I'm still not sold. We'll get to more on OSU and Arizona, but I don't know. I feel like they're like worst of the worst. And again, if they just lost 2 games, that they could end up 10th. That they'd be way higher than 10th probably.
They have Arizona and Oklahoma State on the road, but they avoid Utah and Kansas State, and they get an easy W of Colorado near the end of the year. Like, I think this team will stumble in and become, 8, 9, 10. I think that's completely realistic.
Nope.
Yeah.
No.
Baron Morton, Bobby already got to name drop Baron Morton, but usually I like to ask Blake and remind him, who's the quarterback for Texas Tech again?
Yeah, Baron Morton. Absolute. This guy wasn't playing any spring ball whatsoever because he has one of those phantom injuries, like another guy that will probably come up on this podcast, that people always put their stock. They always hope, Baron Morton's going to be great. He's going to be out in the first 2 or 3 games. Like, we're going to see the same Texas Tech BS all over again. A defense that isn't that great, a quarterback that can't stay healthy, and they just have a little bit of a revolving door. Like, I've never seen more quarterbacks play for a program than Texas Tech, because they play about 4 or 5 each season because they can't keep that position healthy. This team, it's the hype, it's the feed, it's the definition of eating the feed like a sheep out of the hand when it comes to picking Texas Tech. Joey McGuire is just kind of butted up against those Texas media types. He gets the most favorable coverage of any coach in the state, but has nothing to show for it. No results whatsoever. Like, we've had these hype Texas Tech teams. We had it last year, and what do you have it? How many losses? 6 losses. 6 losses on the schedule. I know this team. This team they are kings of hype, but can't actually follow through. I feel very comfortable keeping them on the outside looking in. They just stumble. They stumble. Like, even like the crap TCU team last year, TCU had a chance to win it on the final drive. Like, they just can't put bad teams away. They can't beat the good teams. They're 6-6 waiting to happen, 5-7. I don't feel threatened by them at all. Like, not a single bit.
All they do is yap.
Yeah, Baron Morton's saying his shoulder's 100% right now.
I don't care. I don't care. I heard Jalen Daniels say his back was 100% and had to watch them do that rope-a-dope game all year long, just keeping them in and out, him warming up and never going in. Cam Rising did the same thing. No player's going to come out here in August and be like, my back isn't 100%, He wants to play. He wants to start. He's going to get broken into in the first, 2 or 3 games. I, feel very confident that Baron Morton will probably not be starting for half the season.
Like Taj Brooks, though, right?
Okay.
I do. Taj Brooks is good. That's their only, their one. But I just get skeptical of these one-dimensional teams around the run game. I feel like the moment you stop it and they can't generate those big plays via the run, they're really easy to beat. OSU kind of saw a little bit of that last year whenever, the few teams that were able to impede Ollie Gordon a little bit, they struggled. If you're telling me we're one Taj Brooks injury away from this team really falling off the face of the earth, there's no depth here for Texas Tech for me to take him in the top 10. None. And they don't give any of that upside. Just no upside.
Well, we'll see how it shakes out. Ty, who do you have in your number 9 slot?
At my number 9 slot, I have a team that is familiar to many on this podcast. Actually familiar to everyone because it's a team we talk about all the time. I don't know where I was going with that. I have the Purple Froggies. Give me TCU at number 9. Blake, I want you to know that this is a number 9.
Oh,
This
jeez.
is a 9 out of respect and love. I felt that
TCU
they didn't deserve it, but I said, I'm going to do this for Blake because I like them. I was going to put them at 8, but then I had to take away some because they got rid of the cool uniforms for.
Yeah,
you're going to
I
have to
don't know
answer
why.
for the uniforms.
Oh, I
Yeah,
don't.
can
It's
you
Nike.
please
It's
tell
Nike.
everyone what you put
It's
put
Nike wants to use the same template for everybody, and they just want to make their factory workers like just have, I guess, easier jobs, reduce labor. I don't know. They just killed all aura around every program they had this year.
Oh my god!
Please say out loud what you did to TCU in your rankings. This is unbelievable, Blake.
5. It is so reasonable,
Oh my God.
and I thought about putting them higher. This is just a classic like. You haven't been watching TCU if you have them this low. It's the years where you don't expect
What you
them.
mean?
You don't expect anything out of them. They do great things. Like I could see this team easy in Arlington. Like top 5 to me, like easy, like could easy see in Arlington. You got at quarterback, you got the man of the future, Josh Hoover, that had important reps versus our hardest part of the schedule last year, and looked pretty good at times. Like I will say, like
Quality
really
loss.
good. He has the Josh Allen, like nice little, like he'll throw the deep bomb.
Did you just compare Hoover to Josh Allen?
His tendencies, there's tendencies. Listen with your ears. Let me finish my statement.
What, to throw interceptions?
I gotta say, quick timeout for our podcast listeners. TCU is at 9 for me, Jameson, and Ty. Blake has them
This
at
is
5.
just collusion. Like the fact that the
Collusion.
yes, how do you all have them at 9?
Three
that-
independent data models have put them there.
I cannot express how happy I was to see, Jameson and Ty both put TCU
Does
there.
anyone remember what Blake? I actually just put it just for funsies. I pulled up the receipts from last year. Anyone want to guess?
Last year was bad.
Blake's? What
I had
Blake,
him at like 3.
Yep,
I
he had him at 3.
Yep.
Yeah, Texas,
They're
Oklahoma,
reloading.
to TCU.
They're like,
Let
we
it be
just
known.
reloaded.
It was a bad take. But see, this year we got all that experience.
But this year's
under our
different.
belt. It is different
It's
this year,
due.
Jameson.
It's due to hit.
Teams build. Like we actually try to build teams, retain guys, supplement through the portal. This offense is going to be clicking. Josh Hoover is going to be a stud. Nobody is talking about him. Nobody's putting him in the same conversations as some of these other bums like Jalen Daniels, as Cam Rising, as Alan Bowman's even getting some respect on the circuits. What the heck are we doing? This guy shows actual promise, can launch the deep ball, sure has some problems as a decision maker as a freshman, but who hasn't? This guy is going to be incredible. We have one of the top like 2 or 3 receivers in the conference with Savion Williams, an absolute freak. We have we got 4 or 5 like Power 5 transfers, most rated 4 stars like in their transfer portal rankings, just because we were able to poach depth from teams like Florida State. Our defense, we got rid of this bum 3-3-5 scheme that we're running, going to the 4-3, running man's football. You put 4 people on the line. You don't try to put out more linebackers and other things to create speed and space. We've learned that already. We know with Alex Grinch, we don't need deceptive and speed. We need guys on the front. We went to that. I love it. I love the defense. Like the thing I've been saying about the defense, it's kind of the mystery of the team, but it's like when Deep Ellum the other day got rated by a magazine one of the 15 fastest growing neighborhoods in America. When you're already at the bottom, there is nowhere to go but up. That is that TCU defense. It can't get worse. That's the good thing for me. Like we were in a lot of close games last year, and with that horrific defense, if it's just has a pulse, we are situated easily to go 7-5, 8-4, which I think is good enough to get you that 5 spot. There's probably going to be a lot of ties, but that 5 spot, I like them there. They're going to be, I think they're 1 year away from really being like the cream of the crop, top 1-2 in the Big 12. But don't be surprised if you see them in Arlington come December. This team's good. This team's going to be good. We have a hard schedule, but like that's why I'm excited for that. I'm excited for
Right.
that.
So non-conference
to
you got
grind.
Stanford.
No, that part's
obviously
easy.
SMU. Yeah, Stanford, SMU, I feel like relatively easy. SMU, you do have to play them in Gerald Ford. That's not a big deal, I imagine. But you do have Utah. At Kansas will be interesting because it's at Arrowhead.
Yeah,
So,
that's a neutral site game then. Like that's a
Pretty
neutral
much.
site game to me.
That's
yeah.
weird.
well, they're playing all of their home games at Arrowhead or
Yeah.
Children's Mercy
Oh,
Park.
we talked about this.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
talked about that.
Just
Is
like
Oklahoma
USC.
State? Is OSU in Stillwater or Fort Worth?
No, it's at TCU.
Okay, so that's a plus, and then
So
you
we
probably
get
have
at
to go to-
Arizona, at OSU. The only like our hardest conference road game is Utah. Like at Utah, that one's a
Yeah.
loss.
That'll be brutal.
That
Rice
one's a
Eccles.
loss.
Good old Mountain West throwback there for sure.
But hey, we're on a 2-game win streak against them, so anything can happen. But yeah, that one's a loss.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, let's move on. I'm gonna go and just go ahead and reveal my number 8. We're going with the West Virginia Mountaineers at 8 from me.
I'm surprised no one did higher.
Ty, you also got him at 8.
Yes.
Did I get that wrong, Blake? Did you have him at 8?
No,
You did. You did.
I did
You
have
did.
him at 8.
Yeah. And then Jameson has him a little bit higher at 7. So, yeah, guys, Mountaineers, I think we were real down on him, about to basically kick Neil Brown out of his job last year, and came through and had probably one of the most impressive runs, out of any coach in the Big 12, I would say. 9-4 season with a really tough schedule, 8-5 against the spread. But he's got to do it again. Another tough run. You got Penn State this time, I believe, at home. Still have to play Pitt, Oklahoma State, Arizona, Kansas State. Like it is a brutal run for the Mountaineers. But I just feel like they're a solid team that, is tough, hard-nosed. I'm kind of all in on Neil Brown right now. This feels about right for me about where West Virginia ends up. And this is one of the more even, I think, picks we've had where we have on the entire slate with each other. I think we're all kind of floating with West Virginia here.
I've got to say something. Shout out to Tony in the comments on YouTube. I got to own up. I made my rankings and then I did my research to just kind of justify what I had made.
I love it. Find the nuggets to justify
the more I learned about West Virginia, the more I was like, oh, they probably should have been higher. Like you said, terrible schedule. One of the rougher schedules in the Big 12, outside of, I guess, playing Utah, but a lot of returning production on this West Virginia team. And obviously they've been trending in the right direction. So I think we might get cold taken on this one. This is the first team we've talked about so far, I think, that has legit potential to maybe win if some things go left for some other people.
No. I mean, they have a tough non-con, but this is Big 12.
Okay, but like you're what, like you're like Kansas's guy doesn't pan out. Ollie Gordon gets arrested again and sent to prison.
He won't get sent to prison. That's
like you're
thing.
you're one
harder.
turn of car keys and one knee away from West Virginia winning the Big 12. Or at least making it to Arlington.
My pick is very solely based on, I think that there's maybe about 3 or 4 guys in the Big 12. I'd say maybe 4 guys in the Big 12 that I look at, and I'm not counting the Colorado guys because they're just exceptional. But like kind of more average Joe types that I'm like, that guy is a dude and I believe in him as a player. And I think Garrett Green's one of those guys. I feel like we've seen him for a couple years now. I feel like the way that West Virginia ended the year momentum is key. I feel like they have great momentum coming into the season with a returning starting quarterback who's who's done really well. And the way he plays is great for the modern day quarterback. I think that should set up nicely despite the hard schedule to get a couple of wins, and they could be a team to, upset a Kansas State or an Arizona or an Oklahoma State very easily. And I wouldn't blink an eye at it.
They're the perfect cause havoc team. I don't know if they have enough to really put it all together, but in terms of making a run at winning the Big 12 or going to the title, but I feel like they're definitely they're chaotic in a non-chaotic way, and in a way where if you sleepwalk in West Virginia, you're gonna get your ass beat. You know what I mean?
But see, that's not. No.
Bobby wasn't talking about football.
I'm just This team is very one-dimensional on offense. They lost like 3 or 4 guys to the draft, like another 6 to the transfer portal. They lost like all their defense and filled it up with a whole bunch of FCS guys in the back. Like, I think their defense got worse, their schedule got harder, and the offense is a very one-dimensional run heavy. They can't separate from teams. I don't think that's a team for chaos. I think that's a team that probably handily beats their opponents that they're a little bit better than, but lose to the ones that they like are worse than. I just feel like they're going to be a pretty solid average team all the way around, but I don't see them anything more than that. They don't have any dynamic. Garrett Green can run, but like, you know how to defend them. Like the jury is out. And I just felt like last year they had an incredible year because we literally, even with that bad schedule, like thought they were like still going to fire Neil Brown. Like we thought they were going to still do horrendous, but they didn't play any world beaters last year. And like the world beaters that they played, they lost to, like Oklahoma State, OU, Penn State, not really a world beater, but a decent team at that. But like they had some of the easiest, like they probably had one of the easiest schedules last year in the Big 12 and just feasted on it, and good for them. But I think this year's we're gonna see they're 80% of what they were last year with a harder schedule. They're gonna slide back a bit. That puts them about middle of the pack. Nothing wrong with that, but I don't see them being like some game wreckers going to Arlington. They're not that dynamic. They're not that good. They're just they're right. 8 is perfect for them.
And I mean, I wasn't saying Arlington. I'm just saying I don't think they'll do that. But I could see them like,
I have them at 7 and y'all have them at 8. Really, there's no disagreement with all of us.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's 8. I'm saying it's 8 firmly cemented, and y'all are like 7. But they could really upset some of these big guys.
I think they can make upsets, and I think they can lose easy.
No, but there's no
There's Blake, plus or minus there.
There's no like big guys though. That's the appeal of the Big 12. Like the delta between West Virginia and some of these like quote unquote big guys is not like, we're not talking about Vandy versus Georgia here.
I know that, but I just don't think I think there is still gaps there, and I think the way that this team plays ball and the way that they have recruited their defense this year, I just don't think they're going to be that solid. I just don't see them being this team that it's always like, oh, what could like kind of the Iowa State role that they always find themselves in, like, oh, Iowa State could upset them type thing. I don't think that's this team. I think they're just a solid, good all around team. They don't really have a ceiling. Don't like have a high floor, no ceiling whatsoever, but that's fine. That's fine. That gets you to 8.
Okay. Hey, Blake, who do you have at your 7?
Let me look that up, Bobby. I do not remember off the top of my head. Oh, the team I was just talking about, Iowa State.
Ooh,
yes,
bring him in
at number 7 for Bowden, Blake, and Ty. And then me and Jameson riding high on the Cyclones, having them in our 5 slot.
This is crazy.
Are you guys on NIL for Iowa State?
Here's my thing with Iowa State. They went through hell last year. They had the dumbest, all of these disasters happening all at once, and they still somehow gritted their way to, being a game or so away from a Big 12 title, appearance. They weren't that far away. I kind of think Iowa State, they're just they're like cockroaches. You can throw whatever you want at them, have them lose to Ohio. They're going to find a way to be just decent, pretty good in the Big 12 conference. I think, after a brutal year on and off the field, primarily off the field, they're going to find a way to kind of sit around this 5 spot. So I'm kind of high on Iowa State. Why are you high on Iowa State, Jameson?
Why are they people hating on my boy Rocco Becht? Y'all know Rocco Becht, one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12. Don't hit me with this Josh Hoover stuff, Bowden Blake. Come on, dude. Rocco Becht is
ceiling. You love to watch those guys that are going nowhere. They're just kind of average. That will never make the jump. You love your Tyler Shucks. You love your Aaron Mortons. You love those guys that will just never develop, and they just show a right play. But you don't appreciate the ceiling. That's fine. If that's what you want in a quarterback, that's
Rocco Becht's got a ceiling, and I identified him after week 1 of last year as a guy, and then y'all started to be like, "Oh, I actually kind of see it." And y'all hopped on, and now y'all have forgotten a little bit of what you thought of Rocco Becht. And the thing is, it's not just Rocco. Rocco's got targets here. He's got first team All Big 12 Jaden Higgins, who's an absolute dude there. You got Jalen Noel, he's got good targets that I think that this offense will be kind of dirty, and you can almost guarantee Iowa State is going to have a good defense most years. I think that this is a team that 5, I think that is completely fair. And I do not want to hear it at how you think that 7 versus 5, that is some kind of egregious act that I've committed putting them at 5.
It's not really the act of like the numerical values sometimes. It's the way in which you perceive them and like how they end up in your numbers. Like you're kind of more of a destination guy, I can tell, Jameson. I'm more of a guy about the journey, read between the lines a little bit, try to like understand these teams and how they got there and what impresses me, what it tells me about these teams. But I do agree, like if you value just like returning starters and just like some year-to-year continuity like that, not really adding anything via the transfer portal, or
that's what conference previews are about, Blake.
Like, that's what if you want that, like if we saw what they did last year, they were a good team, like they were solid, but like every other Iowa State team, we know what's gonna happen. Anytime this team gets a little bit of hype, they just lose games. They lose games. Like their best year was 2020. And like still like, and after that had the same expectations going into the next year, fumbled. Last year was the 2020. This year's going to be the 2021. I think they're going to be all right, but like they just lose a lot of games. They always do. They just always lose a lot of games. I don't care how good you tell me this Iowa State team is. They never can actually put it in the win and loss column. They're always solid. They don't get blown out, but they always seem to lose. So I think I have history on my side on this one. That they're going to be around 6-6, maybe 7-5.
Ty,
you'll be all right.
Here is the thing: Iowa State. We've known this on the podcast. I invented this term before. All joking aside about bittersweet, I invented the idea of an NPC when I started talking about Iowa State. And what I always said was that they're just going to be like the average and then just slightly better, so that they will be like we talked about, right? They'll win those games. They'll be the cockroach. They will just be slightly better. They'll never have any like flashiness. It'll always be just like people who grind, people with tremendous talent, don't get me wrong, but just aren't like as flashy as some of the other people. And they will wait on you to make mistakes, and they will capitalize on those, and they will make things hard on you, but they're not designed to win. Right? They're the NPC that's designed to challenge you. So where do I rank them? Right? I look at the conference and I say they should be just about halfway and up. So, oh my goodness, on the top 10, Jameson's right. They should be at 5, but there's not 10 teams in the conference. There are more. That's why they mathematically belong at 7. You guys are in all this emotion, blah, 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 blah. They are not real. They are not real people. They are programmed. They don't exist. No one's ever seen them play live. They don't exist. They are a simulation designed to be just slightly better than the conference average, which puts them at 7. It's math. It's just math. I know you guys are upset. Oh, I don't like Iowa State. I don't like Iowa State. You're feuding with an AI. Like this is the customer service chatbot that pops up in the little bottom right of your screen when you go to a different website. It gets to play football on Saturdays, and it's called the Iowa State Cyclones.
That's funny. That's really funny.
I'm looking at Ty's rankings 1 through 6. I have no idea who the hell. There's 5 teams I know that are going to be there. I don't know who the hell is the 6th one.
Blake and I are basically in lockstep this entire way. So
I think I know who Blake's
Ty,
nine is
who
going to
is
be.
your number 6?
What the hell
Ty,
is
who's
going to
your number
happen
6?
here?
Hang on, I got to count up backwards. We just did Iowa State. At number 6, I hope this is 6 because I just counted off the hip. I have Kansas, maybe. Bobby, is that correct? I did count correctly.
Who the hell is in your top 5? What is going on?
So Ty has Kansas. Actually, both.
Okay, Jameson, you don't have Kansas in your top 5 either.
Wait, no, I'm just confused. There's someone that Blake's high on and that you're high on that I'm not high on in the slightest.
There is like it is so easy to choose.
Okay. We got to explain what happened on the rankings here. So all of us, me, Ty, Jameson, all have Kansas 6. Blake has them at 9.
Wait, let me just tell you something, Jameson. I know who I have that you're not expecting to be in the top 5. And I promise you right now, Blake does not have them there. I don't think they're in Blake's 10 at all.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I am very confused. I put
So-
Baylor in as a joke, and I'm like very confused what's going on right now.
So
Wait, I'm
Blake,
more concerned for Jameson that he's leaving off a team. I think mine,
Yeah.
I'm
Jameson's
more
gonna be like,
concerned.
oh my
Why
god,
are
I
we
forgot they're in
getting
the conference.
So
Yeah,
Blake,
you only have
why-
4 picks left.
So Blake, why? Okay, we'll get to that. We'll get to
Wait a
that.
second.
So Blake, why do you have Kansas at 9?
No.
This is such a easy God, I know you went to
Okay,
med
no-
school, but can you
no,
count?
okay,
You have
guys,
1, 2, 3, 4 right there.
You know what?
Yeah.
Look. For the sake of the podcast, we're going to just go ahead and we'll talk about Kansas later.
No, let's talk about Kansas
no,
now.
Kansas-
No.
There's a team that
we're talking about it right now.
Have high on that
Um,
I just wasn't high on.
I'm going to go with my 7, and I'm going to go with the Central Florida Golden Knights.
What the hell are
Yeah.
you doing at 4?
Dude, you're
Jameson does not have
here.
UCF on his list at all. Ty and Blake both have UCF at 4. I have him at 7. Jameson left them off entirely.
Yeah, you're saying Baylor is better than UCF?
No.
Baylor was a bit. Like everyone knows that's a bit. But I was doing hot take with Central Florida. Having them at 4 is just like blowing my mind. I'm willing to listen. This could be, I don't know. Please
Wait,
speak.
Ty.
no, don't flip this on us. Why are they
Nope.
completely out?
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Because
consensus
John
is
Reese
against
Plumlee
you,
isn't the
Jameson.
quarterback anymore, and I worry about that.
It's
You
KJ
were
Jefferson.
JJ Jefferson.
You worry?
Because I do not believe in KJ Jefferson one bit.
I believe in him more than John Reese
John Reese
Plumlee.
Plumlee.
We're talking about the plum dog.
I think that their offense is going to take a big hit. I think Javon Baker for them was an absolute star last year. And I'm sorry. I just don't believe in this Central Florida team. I think that they very well could be like, if I just, the bit aside with the Baylor, I was going to put UCF there. But I thought it was going to be funny to talk about Jake Spavital. But UCF, yeah, and I could have them above TCU in my head too. But to be completely frank with you, this is kind of like, I just want to be hot takey, and I think that they could fall apart. Simple as that.
I'm lower
That's
on them than
everyone.
like a lot of national guys, because I feel like a lot of people nationally have UCF kind of high. I don't think they'll be as bad as they were last year. 6 and 7. I will say both the overall record and the against the spread look worse than they were somehow. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it feels like they were a slightly better team than the numbers show. And I think in year 2, Gus Malzahn is going to have this team a little bit better, but not nearly as good as people are projecting them to make this leap. I don't get it. I think they'll be a solid football team, but I don't think they're going to be like 4. I think 4 feels way too rich for my blood at this point in the UCF Big 12 experiment. Ty, I'll let you cede the floor to you.
Here's the thing. Gus Malzahn, I think, is in his element here. You're talking about a guy, right, who I don't know what these numbers are because I've forgotten. And forgive me, I had a long day. I forgot Travis Hunter's name earlier. So
It's okay.
I called him the guy who plays like both sides of the ball or something. Gus Malzahn has a better record against Saban than Kirby Smart. And he has a champion. Like, this is a guy who can get stuff done. Like, obviously, yeah, he's not still at Auburn or whatever, but he is a guy that can get things done against the toughest of opponents. And yeah, different era of college football now, completely different location. But you're telling me that he's at a team in Florida who has massive support that's just not recognized yet, massive fan base, tremendous, I would argue, potentially maybe even the most stability within Florida. That's going to be, I'm going to quantify that because that's a wild take considering Florida State. But Florida State, right? Like, what are you telling people for where you're going to be next year and everything else? Obviously, I think Florida State's a much better landing spot for recruits right now, but UCF has their stuff figured out. They have their ducks in a row. They're in the state of Florida, tremendous recruiting ground. They have a coach who can point to all of these successes with players and with championships. And I think you're also going to see that on the field because obviously you make the argument, oh, everything you said, cool, you're talking about building a program. We're talking about where they're going to end up this year. I think that they have a rough schedule in, look at the key games down here at the bottom. If you're listening, you're not getting to watch the video. We got Florida, Arizona, Iowa State, West Virginia, and Utah all highlighted. Those are some tough teams to play. Don't get me wrong. Arizona, Iowa State, Utah and West Virginia is probably one of the tougher polls you can get in terms of a Big 12 conference schedule this year. I just think that if you're talking about, can UCF win, even if they drop, let's say they drop all of those, right? 5 losses, I think they can potentially win 2 of those pretty easily. So yeah, like 3-4 loss UCF, I think is very easily at 4 in this conference where I think we're going to see a lot of chaos.
I think that's fair. I could see that. I think I get the reasoning for 4. I just don't think they're that much better, but they're better. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that makes sense. I think they will be better. I think people are way too hyped.
No,
Jameson
y'all just underappreciated John Reese Plumlee too much. That guy made that offense hum. And
KJ Jefferson is so much better than John Reese Plumlee, and it's not even funny. Like in a league like the SEC, KJ Jefferson, like in 2021 and 2022, was like top 5 in QBR each year.
What years were those again?
Jameson, I don't think
2022, and last year had the most dismal offensive line I've ever seen behind that rock for brains Sam Pittman, who was an offensive line coach. Like, this guy got gifted a system. Gus Malzahn's system is built for these running quarterbacks, like these power running quarterbacks like KJ Jefferson. And KJ Jefferson. No, John Reese Plumlee was not a power runner. He was a little like finesse little runner that would just scat around, just get sacked, and couldn't throw the ball. Like KJ Jefferson can actually like sling the rock a little bit. They have a solid 1-2 punch in the backfield. They have one of the best offensive lines when it comes to the run. Last year they were super explosive in both the run and the pass game. The defense loaded up on transfers. Like, this team has a good floor just because I think this like Gus Malzahn scheme, whenever he took over last year, like they started winning games. They had a close one versus Oklahoma. They beat Oklahoma State when Oklahoma State was at its peak. They killed them. They granted, I have to put the asterisk next to it. That was the space uniform game. So that also brings some mojo. But look, this team, whenever Gus Malzahn took over, like it truly reinvented itself. The team is better on the offensive side of the ball. I think the defense is just as good. But this is like, this team's going to be a little scary. Like, if you like parts about West Virginia and what they do, this Gus Malzahn team does it 10 billion times better with way more dynamic athletes and just is going to be significantly better. So if you like West Virginia making it to Arlington or really pushing close to it, like you should be all on UCF because it's just a better version of it.
To be fair, Jameson did not like the West Virginia going to Arlington takes either. So.
Okay, he also doesn't. I do not get not having him in your top 10. That's wild.
Over at Baylor.
It's the point of a podcast.
Okay, you know what we did? We always
freedom of the press.
We need to loop back at the end of the season on our rankings. We never.
We do, Blake. Right. It's a great idea.
I'm fine with that. I'll admit it. I'll admit when I'm wrong. I'm quick, first guy to say hands up. But this is bad. This is bad.
See, Jameson,
I don't get the omission.
You're a KJ Jefferson not knower. If you were a KJ Jefferson knower, you'd know that there is one thing and one thing only that motivates that man. And Central Florida has a lot more than Arkansas does of that thing. So
we're gonna move. We're gonna take a step back and talk about the team we're talking about right before getting into the UCF talk. Let's talk about the Kansas Jayhawks a little bit. Resurgent year for them, 9-4 overall, 8-5 against the spread. This year, looking at a 7.5 win total. Relatively light schedule. You got Kansas State, as always, in the Sunflower State Showdown. Non-con, you got Illinois. That's something, I guess. And West Virginia. It's going to be a funky year for the Jayhawks playing all of their games off campus. But I don't know. Jalen Daniels, if he's back, if he's healthy, I think this can be a really solid team. I just don't trust it. He missed it like the entirety of last year. Essentially, after a mysterious injury right before Texas, we all kind of thought he was going to transfer. He shows back up at in Lawrence. So yeah, I don't really know if I can trust if I can trust Jalen Daniels' health, but I like him if he plays. It's just too much of a toss up. I feel like everyone knows the Jayhawks are coming, but we'll see. I think that's just the biggest question is they don't have a bean man to lean back on like they did last
Amen.
year.
Now that's the biggest key there. Yeah, they do not have Jason Bean to save them anymore. 6 is very generous. They could fall absolutely more.
Yeah.
Give Devin Nielsen props. More people talk about Jalen Daniels. Devin Neal's their best player. Simple as that. The running back position. He's been doing it for a while now. Jalen Daniels with back issues. Chronic back issues scare me. Like these things could just be flaring up and then going back and then flaring up again. Like I don't know what it is. But the whole situation of him mysteriously being a DNP whenever he was supposed to play, what was that 11 a.m. game where he just mysteriously
Texas.
that was
Texas.
pitiful. That I just
so.
do not trust that. I have
He's
a
hurt.
lot of mistrust in terms of what he is moving forward as a football player.
Yep. Y'all said it perfectly. Like, I think 9, honestly, like I had him at the lowest of the bunch, but 8, honestly, I think that's being even a little too generous. Like, if they lose Jalen Daniels, which I think they probably will, Jameson said it best, chronic back issues. I don't know much about medicine, but anybody that deals with chronic back issues, I swear, is always complaining about it, regardless of how many surgeries they go through, whatever they do. This guy, to sum it up, he is a small game merchant. He loves to play those bum teams, put up the big yards, put up the big highlights, get the hypes coming. And then when it actually matters and they need him, he will not show up to that game. He will not play the Texases. He will not play the OUs. He will not play like your TCUs, your Utahs, he won't play any of the top teams. He's scared. Like, he runs from that competition. That's his prerogative, but he never plays in the big games. I don't trust that. I think 9 is very generous, but Jason Bean, for as much as we joked, really saved them last year, like kept them afloat in a very big way. And their backup is their third stringer from last year. It's not like they brought in somebody like you should have brought in somebody as Kansas with a quarterback made of glass, just any guy that could be a good spot starter. They still didn't do that. And then can't say it enough, but they lost Andy Kolnicki to Penn State. Like, that's a huge loss. Like, he is a very, very, very good offensive coordinator. So the way in which I see it, like, yes, I guess you get the net positive of getting Jalen Daniels back, but I don't think he'll be there long. And it's just they lost a little too much on that roster that I just feel like it's just going to slip a little bit. Even if he stays healthy, I'm still projecting them probably, like, middle of the pack. Like, I just don't think they're fantastic, especially they play all neutral site games this year at this point. So I can't be high with them. There's too many things going against them. Like, you're basically counting your ceiling is if Jalen Daniels stays healthy, and he has not ever. So
I feel like they got a pretty good draw is something that helps them, but it's all about Daniels' health. A healthy Daniels, a guy I really like. I probably have Kansas like a couple ticks higher. Definitely have him over Iowa State. Not sure, maybe at 4. I'm not quite sure. But I don't know. You just can't trust him. I can't trust it. So 6 feels like a pretty moderate pick for them there. Any final words on Kansas before we move on? No. Okay. Cool. Blake. So I see a hole there sitting there at your 6. Who do you got? Who do you got at 6?
This is my controversial probably pick of it, but at number
goodness.
6, I got the Oklahoma State Cowboys.
That's a big one. So
Bobby's gonna put him at 1. Oh, whoa!
Oh,
tie.
6.
Oh,
I have him at 4.
Boys.
Jameson has him at 4, and Ty has him second, going to Arlington back to back. Ollie Gordon driving his way straight to the big game, man. Blake, why are you so low on the Pokes?
Several reasons. I think Ollie Gordon's eventually going to wear out. Like, I started to see it during the end of the year. Teams caught on, and he wore out quick. Like, that BYU game to get them to Arlington was a sweat, was a absolute sweat. And they barely got out of that one alive. And even if you don't count that and the times that Ollie Gordon wasn't playing at the beginning as much during the year, they just really have nothing outside of that. They have, or I guess they have an experienced offensive line, and they got Ollie Gordon. Their quarterback position is an absolute disaster. Like Alan Bowman, I'm tired of these national guys being like, if he plays just serviceable, he's been here for 7 years. Serviceable was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when he can actually develop. We know what he is. He's just not good. Like he could be in my bottom 3-4 quarterbacks in the league. This team's defense last year was just horrific. And so I'm like, ever since Jim Knowles left, that defense hasn't hit the same. Like, we were in talks like last year, like people wanted Mike Gundy gone after the first few games. Like, they were really on the ropes and like took like a really hot stretch there from Ollie Gordon to really save them. Do I think that's a replicable thing year to year? No. No, it doesn't. Their other problems aren't solved. They didn't get better in the passing game. They didn't get a better quarterback. They really didn't get that much better on defense. So I'm like, they're running back the same formula that people started to figure out. Ollie, I just don't think they're going to be as good. Like, I just don't think they're going to be as good.
I think they were really benefited by that schedule last year.
Yes.
Really benefited. And they had a lot of really good breaks, like, Daniels going out when they played Kansas, K-State not figuring themselves out yet with Avery Johnson when they played them. And it was a weird year for the Cowboys because you did have high highs, like beating OU and Bedlam, but then you turn around and blow it. Like, they looked awful down the stretch, absolutely awful. And to me, I honestly felt like I was going a little bit lower than most pundits at 4 with OSU, but I don't know. I feel like that's relatively okay, given the fact that their schedule is absolutely breezy after September. You see the key games at the bottom if you're watching live. Arkansas, obviously a tricky program, hard to predict, not very good last year, but that's an SEC team coming to your town. That's tough. South Dakota State, hell, that's even a tricky game. The defending FCS national champion.
That is a very tricky game. That is
very tricky game. For a school that got blown out by South Alabama at home last year.
It struggled with Central Arkansas the first week.
Yeah.
Like, they've struggled against far worse FCS teams.
Yeah. And the Jackrabbits are going to be a tough challenge. And if I had to pick a line right there, I honestly am picking South Dakota State.
I think it's single digits. I think the preview lines are single digits on that one.
No, for sure. You have to go to Manhattan. You host Utah. But after that, it's kind of breezy. So I feel like 4 is a good spot. I really feel like they were benefited again by the schedule gods quite a bit. There are definitely spots where they can trip up. Provo can get you, but I kind of low on BYU. But after that, I mean, it's on the road at TCU, Colorado. Like, it just not. I don't know. I'm not super impressed by that schedule outside of September.
This team loses to dumb teams, though. Like, you keep on thinking that they're just gonna beat these like bad teams. I'm like, they were on the ropes last year with their season on the line with BYU at home. Like, BYU was horrendous last year, like really, really bad, and they were on the ropes when their season actually mattered. It was win or go home.
So Ty, Ty, you have the pokes at 2. Yeah, I see you shaking your head. What are your thoughts on on us kind of downgrading them?
Here's the thing, and this is not at all a bit. I'm being 100% serious here. Every year, it's the same talking points about Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy. It's like, okay, they pulled one out of their butts last year. They had this, and this. We didn't see it coming, but this time they don't have anything. They don't have it. Mike Gundy is that, we've made this analogy before, he's that dog with something in his mouth, and that's his contract, and he's not letting it go, and he's not showing you what it is either. And he's just running around, and he always pulls something out. He always produces just quality well above what he should if you just looked at the teams that he has on paper. And I don't really even mean to praise him that much. It's like I think at this point he does deserve it, but it's like he just makes it happen. He just makes it happen. You give him the tools or not, he just makes it. He's got that good, like that classic, and I'm not trying to go off on a tangent or a bit here, but he's got that classic, he's got that Oklahoma in him. He's a classic, he's a good born, like not born and bred, but like he's just got that, like he's a regular Oklahoma person. He just throw what you want at him, he's going to make it happen. And I think right now it's just he's in such a stride with the schedule that he's been given. I think they do. I think they pull out a big one in some of these. I don't think Arkansas is all that challenging of a game. And I've never been a believer. It's burned me so many times. There was a long time where OU just could never beat Kansas State with me as a student. I never believe in Kansas State either, but it's like, I just don't think they have that challenging of a schedule. And yeah, Blake's right. They're maybe a bit of a one-trick pony with Ollie Gordon. Teams have found out kind of the way to beat Ollie Gordon. You get him, force him to the outside. We has to kind of run along the sideline because we all know he can't walk a straight line. But it's one of those things where I think they're just going to make it happen. And they've been given they've made it happen with such more challenging schedules in the past. And I'm much more of a believer in the new Big 12 teams than maybe some other people on this pod. And I think that they've been handed, a super, super easy, like we talked about, they have a rough September, but I think that they can clean it up. I mean, one of their away games is in Tulsa, which is essentially a home game for Oklahoma State. So it's just, I think they have a sneaky one, a scary one at BYU that you guys aren't paying attention to. But yeah, I think I'm very confident that I think we're going to see this Oklahoma State team playing in Arlington for the Big 12 championship.
They're going to somehow lose to South Dakota State and Arkansas, but win the Big 12 and get a top 4 seed in the playoffs.
South Dakota State doesn't affect and Arkansas doesn't affect the Big 12.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
exactly.
They could be, yeah.
Just like South Alabama didn't affect them last year.
Yeah, they'll just have like an atrocious record, and then someone that's like a 1-loss or 2-loss team, they'll be a 4-loss team in the championship, and people
they lose every single game in September, including Tulsa somehow, and then win out and make the Big 12, win the Big 12, go to the playoff, despite having 4 losses and one of them being
and then they just play a Utah rematch.
Yeah, run it back. Jameson, your thoughts on the Pokes before we move on?
I think they've got good offensive weapons, but their defense is not good. It's the same things y'all have been saying. I think that's going to get them far in this league, but not near the top. I think Ollie Gordon will guaranteed miss multiple games this year.
Yeah, I agree. Yes. I think it's going to be
using the plural of weapon was very bold there.
Braylon Presley?
I'm kidding.
Brendan Presley's good.
The one thing that OSU really has to worry about, like Oklahoma State really has to worry about, is spring game situation. Because you're going to have a lot of
like him. He refuses to do them.
No, it's an involuntary spring game. I'm talking about the state of Oklahoma versus Ollie Gordon. That's a spring game, right? I keep seeing that.
Yeah, but respect Brendan Presley because that dude is a dude. Like he is very, very good, and people won't talk about him enough this season.
And like OSU, it's weird that their defense is as bad as it is because they have a couple guys like Nick Martin.
Yeah, Nick Martin's going to be a draft pick. Colin Oliver is going to be a draft pick. I saw some bogus mock draft that had Colin Oliver in the first round, which blew my mind. But I mean, like he's still good.
Like they're kind of good, like defensively, like in terms of personnel, but they just can't put it together as a unit. It's just bizarre. Jameson, while I have you. What am I saying? We still have several to go. Who do you have at 3?
My number 3 is a team that I really wanted to put higher, but I'm just worried about their transition in their schedule, and that's Arizona.
We all have Arizona at 3.
Mm-hmm. I love this Arizona team. I love them. I think they have so many weapons and so much talent on the field. But there's just some concerning things. The teams that we have at 1 and 2, except for Ty, there's a team at 5 for Ty, which is crazy. I understand I get clowned with the UCF take, but there's someone that Ty has at 5.
I was expecting Arizona at 5 when Bobby flipped that slide. It did not pop up.
Look, unintended consequences here, going with 3 here. I didn't think about the fact that we now are very confused at Ty's 5, but
no,
anyways,
I think I know who it is.
I think it should be obvious.
Yeah, but
there
at
were
Kansas State, at Utah. So those are the three top teams. I think very easily, and there's a huge drop off after it is Arizona, Utah, and Kansas State, and they have to go on the road to play both of them, which is very tough. Whenever you compare it to Utah and Kansas State, they don't play each other. So Utah and Kansas State gets Arizona at home, and Utah and Kansas State don't have to make each other's record go down. So I really like this team. Fafita he's another one of those guys. You know, I talked earlier about Garrett Green, about guys I watched, and I feel like they've got that it factor. Watching Fafita, he seems like a guy is that it factor. T-Mac for them, man, he is good. He could be a top 5, top 10 type kind of guy in the NFL draft next year. Like, he's an exceptional talent. They've also got first-round draft grades on one of their offensive line. Takario Davis and their DB was a great player for them in the season that a lot of people talked about. Big picture, though, I think they've got the talent to be well, but losing Jed Fish and having a transition in a new coach, I feel like just should in their schedule. I just don't think that they can get to the 1 or 2 spot.
If Jed Fish stayed, I'd have him like 1, probably 1 or 2. Like they would be an easy contender for me. But I just don't know anything about what Brent Brennan. Like
he's a good coach. He's a good coach.
He was at San Jose State, right? Yeah. Like, so he like has good pedigree. And obviously it was good enough to keep Fafita, and crew. Like, Fish didn't really lose get a ton of guys to go with him to Washington. And when you don't see that mass exodus, whoever you have in place has to be pretty solid. So to me, there are still questions about it. I just need to see it. I can't put a new head coach that high. I think in a situation that was like Arizona came out of nowhere last year. It was a massive rebuild. Shocker. So year 2, you want to see that continuity, but it's weird to see that continuity when you're also breaking in a new head coach. And, Fafita hasn't played a full season yet. He was kind of a surprise. So I think Arizona could very well finish higher than this, and I'm not trying to hedge, but I just don't know. That's why, and I think we all kind of agree, and that's why they're at 3. We think they'll be good. We just don't think we don't think they're Arlington good yet. We're not ready to say that in August. So.
No, I think putting them in your top 3 or 4 is saying they could be Arlington good. You just feel confident about more others,
but not calling them for Arlington right now is what I mean.
I would like.
But you didn't
put them in 1 or 2.
But you didn't.
I'm kind of regretting it now that I'm like looking it over, just because like I love everything about this team. Like, they have a great, just like one of those, like, Noah Fafita's not going to be a pro. Like, he's not going to be a guy like an NFL starter, but he's a fantastic college quarterback. Like, gave us one of the most electric, like, the Alamo Bowl always delivers. And it was such a fun game to watch. And I think, like, there's probably a little bit of recency bias, even though that was like months and months and months ago. But it's one of the last games that I watched of last season, so it's still fresh on the mind. But yeah, Fafita McMillan is just like an unstoppable combination. I'm pretty high on Brent Brennan. Like Bobby said it perfectly. When you have a guy like Jed Fish leave for Washington to a perceived better conference, and like only 1 or 2 guys really like impact guys go with them.
A perceived better conference. You're kidding, right?
Yeah, dude, like, there's a lot of Big 12 teams that are better than like 80, 85, 90% of the Big 10. The Big 10's top heavy. They're top heavy. They have
but they're very top heavy. Very top.
People forget that conferences are not like the Pac-2 right now. It consists of 2 or 3 teams. They have to house 16 to 18.
I'm not going to hear anything but the Big 12.
No, well, I'm just saying. If we want to talk about the Big 10, if we did a podcast like this with the Big 10, what would we be saying about 10 and 9? That would be.
I'd be saying it's Penn State at 10.
Okay, that's great. But no, it'd be. You know what I mean, Blake? I'm kind of with you on that, but I mean, I wouldn't say better conference because I don't think there's a single team in this league that can win a national championship this year.
Yeah, but that's it. Just depends on what you see as like the best conferences. Like,
better entertainment product.
Yeah, I think it's a great entertainment product. I don't know if it's a great football conference right now.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like everybody talks up the Big 10, but then also these same national pundits go on there and be like, watch out for Penn State at West Virginia. Like, we're putting West Virginia as our 7th or 8th best team, and that's their 3rd best team in the Big 10, and they're saying, watch out for that? Like, See, this is telling me that they're closer than you actually think. It's just you allow Ohio State and Oregon just to like really separate it from you. Like, what's the last time a Big 12 team went up like in a meaningful moment, went up against a Big 10 team? Like, there's no way the Big 12 team won, right?
Oklahoma.
Jeez, no,
In
he's doing a
2017?
TCU Michigan bit. He's doing
Like,
a.
Yeah. Well,
I
done.
saw this right from
Well
the start. It's
so I
And
just
they were cheating
like
too, Paul.
good. Yeah, they were cheating and lost. Like
no, they
yeah.
didn't. It was proven they didn't. Remember, you guys were
Their
like
head
one of the
coach
two
Jameson.
teams that didn't cheat against.
Oh, or they or there's conflicting reports. It's either that or we heard that they were cheating, so we just changed all of our signs. And so that would also explain why some of the guys are just completely wide open down the field whenever like Quentin Johnston, our best player,
his
is like
draft prospect going first round, and then the Chargers were dumb enough to draft him in the first round and believes that bum is actually a good player.
It's
Hey,
insane.
have a second-year
His downfall needs to be studied. The Quentin Johnson.
It's all TC receivers. It's Josh Doxson was the same way. Jalen Rager. I don't care about
LT.
NFL. Like, if you told me it's like you could have a team of Iowas, your guys are pretty good on your team, but never going to get you to anywhere meaningful, but they're really good NFL prospects, or a team where they are amazing college players. They will give you some of the highest of highs from that sport, but they will be garbage in the NFL. I would take them being I would take them making my college football team better, not just some like perceived pro dominance.
You don't have to
right.
have either or though. You can be Oklahoma and have both.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on a little bit. We've kind of gone off the rail a little bit. Ty, I see that glaring 5 right there.
Yes.
Who do you have as your 5th best team in the country? Or the country, Big 12.
At my 5th slot in the country of the Big 12, I have. Let me look at my list. Oh, well. If it isn't the team that presumably all of you have it too, because
Probably not.
Well, we're not going to say why. We're not going to say we all know I can't say why. Maybe there's something that's affected your ability to reason cognitively. You know, maybe you've fallen for some. Anyways, I have Kansas State at number 5.
So Ty, all of us are on the same with Kansas State. We just have them one.
Oh,
Jesus.
yikes.
No, okay, wait.
Jameson and
Let
Blake
me just-
all have Kansas State winning the Big 12.
Let me preamble this. This is mental illness. This is delusion. This is refusal to put clearly the best team at 1 because they're not. This is elitism. You guys don't believe that this team, they're new, they just joined, they can't be number 1. It's the same reason all of you have Arizona at 3. You refuse to acknowledge that there could be an Arlington where we have 2 Pac-12 teams playing each other for the Big 12 championship. That's what this is. This is ridiculous.
I will say Ty is closer to the truth. I know with my number 1 pick, I was not going to sit here on this podcast and start glazing that team all over. I was not having it, but I also didn't want to be a fool. And so I had to put them at the number 2 spot. But no, I'm not just going to sit here and massage their fans' little egos for a team that does not even want to be in our conference. So yeah, screw them. I wish I could. I was hoping you'd put them at 5 and I would just join you. I can't put them on the actual rankings just so I don't look like an idiot. But yeah, I was not sitting here.
Can I just say that the Blake and I have reached this amazing singularity where we are in lockstep on every pick except for the ones that we are personally emotionally tied to, and then we've got them all over the board. If you look at our just analytical picks, we're 50% together here, and then each one that we're not, it's like some sort of emotional connection to the team where we can't evaluate them objectively. So,
and wildly different, just swinging. So
yeah,
no, not a shocker that I went with Kansas State number 1.
This is the least shocking thing. Bobby has been looking forward to glazing them. This is
my annual look. My annual glaze of K-State. But that being said, I feel like the schedule sets up really well for them. Chris Kleiman, again, I think is an excellent head coach. I think he's built a really
best
good
in
program.
the conference.
Yeah. I'd say he's the best in the conference. Yeah, I think Kleiman. It's a little easier to say now, but yeah, Kleiman's best in the conference for sure.
God, no.
Who do you think's
God,
better?
Bobby's trying to get me to glaze Utah so bad. I'm not going to do it. I'm not.
Okay, well,
Are you
Gus
gonna go
Mel's
Whittingham?
on.
You're gonna
I
go
am not
Whittingham?
going to do it. And
Gus
Gundy
Mel's on.
exists. Gundy, and like Gundy exists. Gus Malzahn exists. Who won a natty? Like, there's other
Gundy
ones.
also does shit like we're gonna have a quarterback controversy, including my son, who less than a year later is at Emporia State. Like, what are we doing here? Like, he messes around and then locks in when he needs to. Like
all the great coaches mess around a little bit. Granted, Gundy does it like to the 10 billion
Nick
degree,
Saban
but-
I'm convinced that Gundy actually isn't that crazy. He just hates journalists.
Oh, he does. He's
Jesus.
the best. I've never seen a coach better of taking heat off his players than him. Like he immediately, like when everybody was dogging Ollie Gordon, he let the 1,000 DUI time,
Yeah,
slip, and nobody was talking about Ollie Gordon.
You think
Not
one
a single
DUI is
person.
bad? I've done 10,000.
and nobody knows.
What does it matter to him? Like he's still gonna be the head coach. He's
Former
the net cast is the
NDUI
same.
spokesman Mike Gundy talking about how many DUIs he's had.
Such an insane. It's terrible.
But no, my thing with K-State, I feel like schedule works out well. Love the coach. I feel like the line's tough. Avery Johnson is an upgrade over Will Howard. And I don't know. I just feel like this lines up really well for Kansas State to make a really good run. I'm not fully certain they'll run into Utah. I still have some questions. We'll talk about that when we get to it. But K-State, I'm about them this year. I'm about them all the time. But I just feel like this is a conference they can really excel in right now.
Yeah,
And
Avery
I'm
Johnson.
I'm big on him.
Yeah, Avery Johnson is going to be that top pinnacle player in the conference. The way he showed himself last year in the moments that he did get, I was like, we all said on this podcast, like, this guy's a dude. People don't talk. DJ Giddens, the running back, is very good. Very, very good. He showed a lot last year and won them a lot of games in the trenches that people didn't talk about enough. I think them as a 1-2 punch running the ball is going to be super hard to stop. And plus, like you said it, Bobby, looking at their schedule, they've got Arizona at home. They've got Oklahoma State at home, at Kansas at home. Those were their 3 toughest opponents. So, I mean, I think this is a good setup for them to be number 1.
Their toughest road game is what? Farmageddon?
Iowa State.
At Iowa State?
Yeah.
It's Farmageddon. They're road games. You have Farmageddon at Jack Trice. You have Houston. You have at West Virginia, which could be a little tricky. That's one of those upset type of spots. Colorado at Folsom Field. BYU at Lavelle Edwards. And then non-conference, I will say, at Yeoman Stadium, we've seen them lose to Tulane in the past, and not on the road. But that doesn't matter for the conference.
This Kansas State's the type of team that can beat Colorado by 30.
Yeah, they're disciplined.
Their floor is so high just because Avery Johnson, the reason why they wouldn't be the number 1 team is just because Avery Johnson can't really pass. And we'd never have had to really see that part of his game in meaningful moments. And he's just not he could easily just wind up not being a very good passer. But their floor is so incredibly high just because Avery Johnson's just going to be an absolute demon to stop. He's so quick and fast, and we highlight that's the best part about the Schooner Pod is when the national podcasts are all hyping up Will Howard to win the Big Ten Player of the Year. This guy couldn't even start this year on K-State. Another just put another feather in the cap of why the Big 12 is better. Your top program is taking the guy that not even K-State wanted. Will Howard was a bum. This team's gonna be so dynamic. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna frustrate the hell out of me because I don't really like K-State all that much, but Avery Johnson's He's going to be a fun watch.
Blake, did you see Will Howard's quote today about playing at Ohio State?
Yeah, he was just I like it because there's no pressure on me. Yeah, he's like, I just have to be a role player. Like, that guy doesn't have it. He does like that's why Ohio State is gonna inevitably lose to Georgia. Like, doesn't have that it factor, doesn't have that like give me the ball in my hands. He just wants to be just a role play. He wants to be a ninth man on the bench type of guy. Like, God. But yeah, Avery Johnson's just gonna be so much fun to watch. It's gonna be a video game team. Like, I think they could easily, I could see them being second in this conference, do the typical K-State thing where they drop like 2 or 3 games to like random ones, but then ultimately win the actual conference game. It's just going to be such a fun dynamic team to watch. Like they lost some pieces too this year, but Avery Johnson, I'm just so high on him. Like he's my Heisman dark horse. Like he's just.
Yeah, I think they are very fun to play. You said they're a video game team, and honestly, if you haven't played with them yet on the new college football game, do it. They're fun. They're so fun.
So fast.
Yeah.
What's the speed of Dylan Edwards? That guy's got to be a 97, 98, 99, if that's accurate. Because I
don't know it off the top of my head.
I do not have all the speed rankings memorized for the NCAA college football video game.
All right, boys. Let's move on to the final pick here. The one that I think a lot of people probably thought.
Wait, what does Ty have him at 5?
Yes, no.
Yeah, wait. Yeah, wait a second.
Yeah, like we can't let that sneak by
because they're not good.
I can.
You guys constant every year. It's like the inverse of Oklahoma State. Oh, they are very good. They're very good. They're going to make a challenge. 4 losses. It's like it's the same little game, the same little scheme every year. Kansas State was good under the still current great, I don't want to say late great, the still current great Bill Snyder. Then he handed the keys over to just a random person who Bobby seems to think is the greatest coach in the Big 12, even though he's essentially serving like jury duty. He was just a randomly selected person who just has to sit there, and it's passive income with wins. They don't do anything. They don't like recruit anyone. They have thank God the Lockett family exists to produce them a star every couple generations or so. But it's like they just exhibit what you can do within this conference if you just kind of execute the basic stuff really well above an NPC level. They're not winning anything ever. They don't even really want that. They're here to cash a check over and over and over and over. That's the K-State way, and then just produce a very prestigious coaching tree. That's what K-State does. I don't understand why you guys think that there's some sort of amazing team. It's like it's OU fan bias because they burned us a bunch of times because every coach we've had is just in their coaching tree or extremely lazy, Lincoln Riley, and they like have like the keys to the kingdom against us because they know they trained our coaches, so they know what they're going to do. Or again, our coaches are extremely lazy and just lose easy games. They're not better than UCF. They're not better than Arizona. They're not better than Oklahoma State, and they're not better than. We're not going to name the name yet. We're going to build the suspense. It could be anyone. It could be Baylor. I have it number 1.
Oh, unfortunately, it couldn't because they're already in
Dave Aranda won a national championship. Dave Aranda won a national championship while having to deal with Coach O as like the ultimate authority. So he's got something in there that works. If he could win a natty through the handicap that is Coach O. So
there we go. Well, we're moving on to Ty's number 1. Who did you have number 1?
At number 1, aliens invading the earth. They come down. They say someone has to make a 3-point shot to save humanity. I want the Utah Utes.
Bobby with a mega troll job on YouTube, changing it to Arizona State for
So the Utes are Ty's number 1. I think that is a solid pick. I was honestly split between Utah and K-State, as I think a lot of us were thinking about a lot. Utah is my second, Jameson's second, Blake's second. Look, I think Ty, you picked them number 1. I want to hear from you on why you're all in on the Utes. Like you said, aliens come down. Why are you going with the Utes?
Why am I going with? the Iguodala, the Utes here, they're just so unbelievably consistent. I think they have apparently a passionate fan base that no one but Blake knows exists, because Blake is apparently actively feuding with all of them. Again, there's no conclusive proof that these people even exist. So Blake is a bit like at the start of Independence Day with the man in the motorhome who is just convinced that aliens are about to invade the earth, and no one believes him. Because again, no conclusive evidence that these Utah fans on social media exist that Blake is feuding with. And I heard he was maybe abducted by them at one point and experimented upon. But I think they're just a consistent team. They constantly produce. This is not something I think. We know this. And they were so consistent and competitive in a conference that was much more top heavy. I think they're a team that is built to really succeed in a conference with much more parity, because I think they bring, to Kansas State's credit and to Iowa State's credit, two teams that I've always been down on, I think they bring that same mentality, but just at a much higher level of excellence. I think they bring that, we're just going to do the basics, we're just going to be fundamental, and we're just going to practice executing at a higher and higher level, and we're just going to continue to refine our process, not try to get crazy, not try to reinvent the wheel. We're just going to play fundamental football and build fundamental programs by the book and not stress about anything else. And I might be giving them too much credit here, but when I look at Utah, I look at different conference, so we might see vastly different results. But I look at the same playbook as Kansas State, the same playbook as Iowa State, all bits aside, but just executed at a higher level. And I think they're at a higher point right now. So I like Utah to come in. I like their novelty against most of this schedule to kind of be a surprise to people and be sort of a twist in the rope to some people that they're not necessarily used to solving. And I think they're going to do very well, just as I think, I've been cold on UCF for, I guess, a couple years now, picks wise, but I think UCF will eventually do very well. And I like this Utah team to come in and shock the world and win the Big 12 year one. As much as I would like, and it is not a bit, as much as I would like for TCU to win it, I do think Utah will win.
And I will say, I don't know. I think we're honestly, a lot of us are really kind of going against the grain here with K-State. I think a lot of people are pretty big on Utah. And for me, last year, last year was weird because they had like horrible injury luck with Rising not coming back. And not just Rising, but a slew of other issues. Like they were a skeleton crew against USC, and they still won. And they're gritty. They find a way to win. And I don't want to say I regret this pick, but like looking at their schedule, it's breezy, man. Like you'd see time games here and there, like when they were healthy in 22, but where are those games in 24? Like their toughest road game is Oklahoma State. I believe one of their non-conferences is actually Baylor. That doesn't technically count as a Big 12. Arizona's hard, but you get them at Rice Eccles, and then you're kind of set. So you have your September, and then, it seems like a schedule where Utah can really make a run. I don't know. I want to see it. Like
I'm just nervous about their ceiling, Bobby, because I think you agree, and then we all agree they have a very, very high floor. Cam Rising is their ceiling, and a lot of it you could see last year is the delayed response and how he came back from his ACL. It wasn't like he tore a lot in his knee. And so just like for reference, in addition to his ACL, he had meniscus tear, an MPFL, and an MCL tear. Like that isn't a big time injury to where even though they're coming out and when Ham's saying like he's 100% and everything, there's still some hedge in his language that I don't think he's ever going to be what he was. So the Cam Rising of old, and I just don't think we're going to get that guy anymore. So we might need to reframe our brains of like this Cam Rising is like, he's still a very good quarterback, but what he was, I don't think he is anymore.
Yeah, that's where it stops with me. Like Utah, they go as far as Cam Rising goes. He's been injured. Like the thing that I get comfort in is Utah can't seem to win big games, and although I don't see many big games on their schedule, there gives me some hope that one of these surprise Big 12 teams actually goes up against them, can beat them, just because like this team, they know how to beat USC, but about everybody else, they seem to get pretty crushed by, seem to get pretty thrown around by, like a fan base that I saw in person last year down in Waco, and I've never seen so many rose tattoos on their with their tank tops. And let me remind you this: they still have not won the Rose Bowl yet. They've been to the Rose Bowl. They're getting these as Rose Bowl participation tattoos. They haven't actually won these games. So this fan base is the most backwards, wild. Like for the fan bases that we gained in the Big 12 that I've really enjoyed, like Arizona. We got to get the bad ones. This is the worst of the worst. These guys suck. They make me sympathetic towards BYU, which is a very hard thing to do. I like the BYU fans a lot more than the Utah fans. We got Pig Bus on there. Ty, if you want to just go back and read some receipts of what Utah Twitter is like the Utah Pig Bus is just...
It's called Pig Bus?
Pig Bus, yes.
It is.
How is that not like an Arkansas thing?
I don't know, dude. Stop trying to reason with these fans.
Again, not convinced that they even exist, but
they do, sadly. Like they're the most. They want the Pac-12 to exist forever because I think they realize like they've kind of beaten up on all these smaller programs that don't give an F about football, the Cals, the Stanfords, and they love that to pad their little schedule to get 8-4 to somehow make a conference championship game, beat USC, make it to a Rose Bowl, lose that to a Big Ten team that has rested all their starters, and that's what they wanted. But they're not going to get that anymore. They're actually going to get teams that care about football, 1 through 16, actually going to try against them. It's going to be a little bit harder. Like Utah does not scare me as much as it scares other people. They are a developmental program that once Kyle Whittingham retires soon, like could easily fall downhill. Like I'm just not worried about them. I'm just not worried about them. They've never strung together that like 12-0 season ever since Urban Meyer's there that like really makes me scared about them. Like they haven't had that elite play. They're just solidly, consistently like 9-3 good. They're good. They're a good program. They're not elite by any means. They haven't had an elite team like since Urban. So
they get to the conference championship and they win it. But
yeah,
like that doesn't.
They're Pac-12 K-State.
And I will say that's going to really help them out, like in the new, CFP. There would be years where Utah would make the playoff and get a bye. And it's going to be interesting to see how that works. And like you said, Utah's they don't go perfect, and once they get to the bowl, they never actually win it. But we'll see.
I will say the Big 12 championship game now is like going to be the premier conference championship game. It's going to have by far the most stakes out of any.
Oh
one.
yeah.
It's
sure.
like the SEC one does not matter. The Big 10 one does not matter. The ACC one can matter, depending on how.
We'll see. We'll see.
Can matter.
Yeah. I mean, there are a couple years recently, like before the expansion, even before they added the new 4, where it mattered. I mean, as you know, Blake, TCU would not be top 4, in your national championship run because K-State would have taken your spot. Like conference championships really matter now, and it's going to be really exciting to see how that.
Or they really matter for one league. They do not matter.
It's only for the Big 12.
There's theoretical scenarios with this new 12-team playoff where it would benefit you losing a conference championship game and getting paired with the G5 opponent, and then like what is perceived as like the ACC or the Big 12, the worst one, than having to play like the second best like SEC squad.
I would say too, there are hypotheticals that you could get into where being the number 3 team, the team left out, if you and the number 2 team are right on the bubble, is maybe better because you won't have a loss, if that makes sense. Like if you're LSU next year, right, and you're right on the bubble, number 3 in the SEC, and for some reason you're at like 4 losses, but you might still make the playoff. I know that infuriates Blake to hear, but And then, you have another 4-loss team that just out-qualifies you in the SEC. 4 losses, maybe extreme. 3-loss. We're too deep in the weeds with this.
A 3-loss SEC
Yeah, no, I
team
think
is probably getting in.
The
I think
three
you
team
have
in the
to
Big Ten
assume
and the
that
SEC
if
are
you're,
getting in.
yeah, no, if
They're
you're top 3 in the Big Ten or the SEC, to y'all's point, you pretty much know you're making the playoff. Like the playoff, the conference championship is irrelevant because you don't even have to go to know that you're an auto bid. Essentially.
Yeah, and there's a whole benefit too of, especially if you host. Like, I mean, that's just a massive win because you get all of the ticket sales and good for the local economy. Like, we can get all into that, but look, Notre Dame, I'm sure they're thrilled that they constantly at best can finish 5th, like have 5th seeding.
It's BS. They're doing the college baseball style for like hosting regionals, basically. Like, you can't, like, they're going to take into account seeding for those games of whether you're big enough to host it. That's what the playoff committee said.
Well,
that
should
can't
be
right.
factored.
No, okay.
Yes,
I
Bobby,
remember.
yes,
I remember. No. I remember you sitting that link at the guy talking at the at the Big 12, and it was taken out of context. It was more like, what are the type of things they're helping with, and you can opt to do that, but it's not. It isn't that case. I don't believe.
I think it's going to be closer to that than you think. They're going to take into account factors not on the field for those games, which
they've already done that. They've already done that.
They already do, but they're admitting it. They're actually admitting it now.
Well, no, Blake. So
that's worse.
What you can also keep in mind, opt in to moving it to a neutral site close to you.
Yes, like USC will have to do.
So like if you're, let's say they wouldn't do it, but like Indiana, you could play it in Indianapolis or.
Hoosiers making it to the playoff?
Lucas Oil.
Signetti.
No.
Jameson, describe how you feel about Lucas Oil Stadium.
What's going on here?
Very specific. All right, boys. I think that's all we really have for this.
Who do you all have as the worst team? I feel like we don't have to go through the whole bottom one, but who do you think is just going to be the bummest of bums that we can just like slander for just a few minutes here?
It's got to be, for me, it's got to be Cincy. I think Cincy's awful. I think the Satterfield hire, awful. They were horrible last year. I think they're going to continue to be bad. I don't see any upward momentum for Cincinnati. I think you could make an argument for Arizona State as well, but I really like Dillingham. I really, really like Willie Fritz at Houston. He's going to need some time to get that machine going, but I really, really like that coach there. And BYU always just, I can't see them being like bottom of the barrel bad. So for me, it's Cincinnati.
I've changed my mind. I forgot that Donovan Smith is still there. He's a redshirt senior. So he's going to lead Houston to a couple wins.
Nope. God. I think this is the falling out for BYU this year. That's kind of like my hot take for the bottom. I think they're going to be really bad.
That's a cold take.
Arizona State.
No, it isn't. Like, I'm not.
ASU.
They're actually building something though. Like, even if they're built, like, recruiting wise, yes, they are building something. Like, Dillingham's a competent coach. I just don't think Kalani Sitake is anymore. I think he's going to get fired soon. But it's hard with BYU because you have to find a coach that wants to coach at BYU. I think BYU is going to be really bad this year. They're going to be really bad.
Jameson.
They were sneaky bad last year. They only had 2 Big 12 wins, and it was Cincinnati, who's in this conversation for sure, and then Texas Tech, who we all know Texas Tech.
BYU just has a tremendous home field advantage. Blake, you're not going to get this analogy, but like ASU people talk about their entire football team like OU students talked about Spencer Rattler. It's like there's not that, like, there's kind of mercenaries at a school that doesn't really care all that much and kind of has better things to do.
ASU kind of is a sneaky commuter school.
I think in spite of their efforts, they're much more on the path to being a California school than they are to being a Big 12 school at this point.
I do feel
they very much are a California school, to be fair.
I like their coach though, and like if they can, I'm not saying they're going to be elite per se, but I like their trajectory more right now. Just like I like the path that they're on. I don't know if they'll end up, but I like the path that they're on.
And like I know like the alumni support probably isn't there, but Arizona, like Tempe feels like, and Ty's gonna probably roast me for saying this because he knows Arizona closer, but Tempe feels like a good place to live if you're young, and Arizona's like state, obviously very fun
It's
school.
a great place to go to college, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be a very fun place to go to college. And I think some people throw around Sleeping Giant too much with this program.
It's not,
but
I
think
it will never be a giant. But
it'll never be a giant, but it'll be pretty good. Like I think
who the hell is playing Sleeping Giant?
I've heard a couple people say like Ari
the numbnuts that are like big markets must mean they're a sleeping giant. It's the same theory with SMU all this time that like they're a sleeping giant because they're in Dallas and they have a lot of money, but they never win, which is
like
the problem.
Miami will be back, but you can't really do that again.
So how the hell is Arizona State in this conversation?
Because they're in a big market.
What's the fifth largest
market
city in the U.S.?
Still, like how they don't. Their fan base is pretty damn small, right?
It doesn't matter about fan base. That's why they put SMU on there. Like it's the alumni base that are donating. Like they have a huge alumni base.
Understood.
Yeah, they've had to actually downsize Sun Devil Stadium. Like they've demolished part of it to be smaller.
I see what they're trying to do. It's just lazy takes.
Oh, it's the laziest of takes. It's just like cool city, big market program with a lot of alumni. They have to be good. They're a sleepy giant when they actually haven't. They haven't had a competent program yet.
Yeah, I mean it's that's kind of one of the reasons.
I do like Scatabo. Bobby and I were talking about the other day.
Scatabo, man.
Why were y'all playing around with ASU?
They're not gonna be last. I could see Arizona.
Cincy's going to be last. Cincy or Houston.
But Carleone is back.
Is he going to actually play like after his heart stuff?
Oh, I don't know.
Heart stuff.
Did he have heart stuff?
Yeah, like he had a really bad heart stuff.
Are you politicizing the pod, Blake? Are you talking about the? We can't say it on YouTube, but.
Well, I thought he was very close to going there with people getting tattoos for commemorating losses. I thought he was about to make an Ole Miss pivot there, but I think Houston, like I trust Willie Fritz enough to
but he was like so much of like a build, like a slow build type of guy. Like he built Tulane. It wasn't like he was a plug and play,
but he's just got to win just enough to beat Houston.
I guess that's enough to not be the worst.
I just think you can do enough to be not the worst is my thing. I don't think they'll be good.
Yeah. We're splitting hairs here.
like I'm saying like they're going to be 15, maybe 14 if they're lucky, but they're not. Yeah, they're not going to be very good.
Okay, so Dante Corleone has blood clots and a pulmonary embolism. So I feel like we've seen this a lot in athletes this far. They just need to be on a certain amount of anticoagulation for a certain amount of time until like they are off that medication. They can't play football if they're on the medication. So this is just a time thing that he could come back this season.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. By the way, since these key games, looking like a Big East slate right here. With Pitt, UCF, and West Virginia. I don't know. Throwing me back.
Who is Cincy's quarterback? That's like the one team I have not looked like anything into.
I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to at all. Look, we're talking Cincinnati football. I think this is as good a time as any to wrap the podcast up. What do you think, boys?
Please.
So yeah, Jameson's over here dying at 10:51 Eastern time. So just to wrap it up, here's everybody.
Brandon Sorsby is Cincinnati's quarterback, the Indiana quarterback. Oh, jeez.
Wait, what happened to De'Aaron King?
Emory Jones. He left, or he's
De'Aaron King.
Hey, I will have you know, he is a dark horse for the 2018 Heisman.
Oh my God. All right. I'm going to wrap it up by just rattling off everybody's rankings. Ty had from 10th to 1st, Colorado, TCU, West Virginia, Iowa State, Kansas State, UCF, Arizona, Oklahoma State, and his Big 12 champion is Utah. Boat Blake had Colorado, Kansas, West Virginia, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, TCU, UCF, Arizona, Utah, and his champion is Kansas State. Jameson had Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech, West Virginia, Kansas, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Arizona, Utah, and his champion is Kansas State. I had Texas Tech, TCU, West Virginia, UCF, Kansas, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Arizona, Utah, and my champion is K-State. So that is a wrap on the Big 12 preview. Guys, we'll be back next week doing kind of this all over again with the SEC preview. Our first ever full in-depth SEC preview with the Sooners as a member of that conference. So very excited for that one. Excited to dive deep into what should be a very exciting season there. Might not have as much variation with our top 10, but it's gonna be fun. Like it's a pretty stacked conference.
We'll find a way.
No,
We'll
we
find
will.
a way, Bobby.
We will.
We will.
Oh, yeah.
Don't you worry, Bobby. Don't you worry.
For sure. Well, until then, everyone, have a good one. We'll talk to you soon, and good luck out there, everyone.